Welcome, everyone, to the Magis Athletic Training Podcast, where we talk to guests from the entire spectrum of athletic training, sports performance, and entrepreneurship within the athletic sports performance space. But please do us a favor and click on the subscribe button, smash that like button, and hit that share, which is just a small way that you can help support and grow this channel. See more phenomenal guests as the one we have today. Today's guest is the Assistant Athletic Director and Director of Sports Performance at Windermere Preparatory School, excuse me. In addition, he consults on projects regarding youth athletic development, education for the NFL, U.S. basketball, U.S. football, and night football. Previously, he was the Director of Strength Conditioning at AC Flora High School, Forest Acres, South Carolina. During his time there, AC Flora won not one, two, but 14 state championships and was twice named the state's athletic program of the year. He also serves as the strength and conditioning consultant coach to the nine-time high school basketball national champions and winner of the 2016 Dick's National Tournament, Oaks Hill Academy. During his time there, he has worked with NBA players such as Cole Anthony, Quinn Cook, Keldon Johnson, and Cody and Caleb Martin. Coach Kurtz has been named the State Strength Coach of the Year 3 times and was named the NHSSCA Southeast Strength Coach of the Year in 2021, a top 40 under 40 sports professional by Coach and AD Magazine in 2018, and the NSCA National Strength Coach of the Year in 2016. Please join me in welcoming to our program the illustrious guest, Coach Micah Kurtz.
I appreciate that awesome introduction for sure. And it's definitely awesome to be a part of this. So thanks a lot for having me on.
Thank you, Coach. And for those who don't know who you are or have not been familiar with some of your work, please tell us a little bit about who Coach Kurtz is, both on and off the field.
Yeah, so I guess a little story about me and how I got into this profession is, I'm getting a little older now, so I guess finishing up high school in the late '90s and early 2000s. Some of my biggest mentors and people that I looked up to were my physical education teachers and my sport coaches. And so when I was very young, I wanted to be a professional athlete. And once I got later in my high school years, I knew that probably wasn't something that I was going to be able to do. But I knew I wanted to stay involved in athletics. So went and played small college football at Cortland State, and my undergrad degree was in physical education. I thought I wanted to be like those PE teachers and sport coaches that were big mentors to me. And so I had a great experience in college and got my physical education degree and ended up getting a job teaching and coaching in Baltimore, Maryland, right out of college. And the school had weightlifting elective classes, and they even though I wasn't a certified strength and conditioning coach, I just came from playing college football, had a little experience in the weight room, so they assigned me to those classes. Once I got involved in those classes, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. And so applied to graduate assistant strength positions all over the country, ended up getting one at the University of South Carolina. And as I was finishing up, I met the former principal and head football coach at AC Flora High School as I was finishing up my grad assistant position, and they said they were trying to create the school's first ever full-time strength position. And talked to my mentor at South Carolina, who I worked under, Billy Anderson and Pat Moore. And I was like, hey, what do you think about this opportunity? Like I thought I wanted to be a collegiate strength coach, or maybe hopefully one day be a professional, work at the professional level. And they're like, you have those connections. You can always look at those opportunities, but this seems like a great opportunity. So I took the position, thought I'd be there for a year or two, and then look at college positions, and ended up staying there for 10 years. And now I'm starting my fourth year at Windermere Prep. So I've been at the high school level as a strength coach for 14 years. And it's, I know this is where God put me. God made me, put me on this earth to work with youth and high school kids. And this is where I'm meant to be. And the impact that we can have at this level is really, really, really tremendous, and something that I don't take lightly. And so that's a little bit about how I came throughout my career, and how I've really, really learned that the high school level is the spot that's for me, for sure.
Thank you so very much for sharing that information in your story. So you spoke on quite a few things there. One of the things that you spoke on was that your initial thing was that you wanted to be a PE teacher, and then you went from wanting to be a PE teacher to being a collegiate strength conditioning coach, to now transferring or um, transitioning into being a high school coach. Can we talk about a little bit about what made you feel um, the calling to go into high school as opposed to what many may perceive as a more prestigious title in regards to being a collegiate coach? And how did you know um, that's what you were called to do? And what do you see as some of the differences between training a collegiate athlete in regards to your interpersonal skills with them as opposed to coaching a high school athlete?
Yeah, those are good questions. And I think originally, like, obviously, I mean, growing up, I mean, I was loved sports, and played football, basketball, and baseball in high school. And so my initial thought process, and especially since now that was 20 years ago, there weren't even that many collegians. You didn't hear that much about collegiate strength coaches back then. So my initial thoughts, I didn't even really know much about the strength and conditioning sector as being a profession. And so my initial thought was to be a PE teacher, a way to stay involved in sports and stay involved in working with coaching and working with kids. And so then when I learned, as the strength and conditioning profession has grown, and when I learned more about the profession, I knew that was where I wanted to be. When I was in high school, I loved working out, and I ended up probably liked working out more than playing some of the sports. But again, I didn't really know about that as a true profession. And then as you said, how did I know that that I was meant to be at the high school level? I mean, I didn't. I mean, I wasn't looking to get into the high school sector, and then I just the opportunity happened to come across. And I mean, it was unbelievable school and community, AC Flora, and just my ability to, I think my ability to relate with people of all demographics and ages is something that's been really, really instrumental in building my programs. And just being at AC Flora for those 10 years and being able to be a fixture in the community, working with the parents of the students, working with the community members, working with the teachers, working with, obviously, with the students, and really being able to be a fixture in the community is something it's extremely special. And it can only really, really, really happen at the high school sector, or maybe having in the private sector, having your own gym. It's completely different. It's a completely different impact that you can have at the high school level versus at the collegiate or pro level. And then just, like I said, being there for 10 years, I was able to work with kids, and then work with their younger brothers and younger sisters. And then as we expanded our program, we expanded it, working all the way down to fifth graders. So I was able to sometimes work with kids for 5, 6, 7 years of their most formative years of their life. And so the impact that you can have is second to none. I truly believe. And now as I've been in it longer, and some of those kids have now grown up and are in the same profession as me. I know 3 of them that are now high school strength coaches, and then one of them just recently asked me to officiate his wedding. And so that's all, it's an unbelievable honor, and the impact that you can have, like I said, being around those kids for their most formative years of their life is extremely tremendous, and something that I don't take lightly. And it's something that I'm blessed to have kind of fallen into this, being at the high school sector, and is definitely where I know I was placed to be for sure.
Gotcha. That's some great information. It's funny how we think that we may have a path, and a lot of times I've heard the saying, "If you want to see God laugh, tell him your plans."
Yeah,
And
right. That's
and it
great.
seems, many times we'll have what we perceive to be the quote unquote um, ideal professional career path, and we'll notice that God will start to open up certain doors, start closing certain doors, because he places something in your heart. And for you, that passion was the actual training. Much like you said, though you enjoy playing sports, you did realize at a early time that you weren't going to end up ultimately being a professional athlete. However, you still wanted to stay connected to that community and how important that community was to you. And the avenue that you thought you wanted to go through was, initially a physical education teacher, and that transformed into a college strength conditioning coach that has now transformed into um, working with high school athletes. What impact, because you did speak to your faith, what impact has your faith actually played in your approach to training?
Yeah, there's actually a sign hanging in my office. It's something that I think about every day, and it helps impact my coaching philosophy. Is quote from Billy Graham, that one coach will impact more young people in a year than most people do in a lifetime. And that's something that I think about daily, and something that truly impacts how I interact with my athletes and my students, is because it can be a positive impact or a negative impact. And that's my number one goal as a coach, is to make a positive impact on their life, to help maximize their potential in all areas of life. And I think obviously at the high school sector, like we said, being around them at the very formative years of their lives, and then also being a strength and conditioning coach and being around them year round, the impact that we can have is second to none. And so it's something that I think about daily, and I definitely want to make a positive impact and be a positive role model for all of my students and athletes, and something that really shapes my coaching philosophy for sure.
Gotcha. You spoke to, again, speaking about your coaching philosophy and the impact that you've had on your students. But you also spoke to two of your mentors, which were Billy Anderson and Pat Moore. What is the impact that they've had on you, and how has that, again, um, been, how's that impacted you both as an individual and how you approach your training with your athletes?
Yeah, good question. So Billy and Pat were unbelievable strength coaches. They were the guys I worked under at South Carolina, and really just helped teach me how to organize a program, and how to have a presence and hold a room in the weight room. And then and as I've grown through this profession, they were my first mentors, and I got so many other guys in this profession that I consider mentors. Other ones, when I first began, I actually had my first speaking engagement at an NSCA conference, I believe in like 2013 or 2014, and so had only been at the high school level for a few years, and I actually had already heard of and heard Gary Schofield speak. Unbelievable longtime strength coach in Atlanta. He actually now works for Play. And I had heard him speak before, and he had tremendous speaker. And when I was asked to speak at an NSCA conference, now I was spoken all over the country in four or five different places around the world. And I never thought I'd be public speaking. And I remember I was extremely nervous on that first presentation. I gave it, and Gary was speaking after me, and he got up. He didn't know who I was, and he was like, "Hey, that was a great presentation." He's like, "I'm gonna take a lot of stuff that you gave," and so he just kind of empowered me and gave me that confidence to continue sharing what I do. And so I consider him a tremendous mentor. And then another one is Bill Ferran, the longtime legendary strength coach of the Miami Heat. And I work with Oak Hill basketball, so I've worked with all sports, but I mean, definitely always kind of more known as being a basketball strength coach. And so I wanted to learn from any high level basketball strength coaches. And so my brother at the time was living in Miami, visiting him, and I just messaged Coach Fran on LinkedIn, not thinking he'd ever respond. I was like, "Hey, my high school strength coach, I'm gonna be down in Miami for these few days. I'd love to come meet you and pick your brain." And he messaged me back and was just like, "Hey, yeah, come on this day. I'm available. Just park in the players lot. Tell them you're here to meet me." And I remember I was driving an old 2000 Chevy Impala and pulled into the players lot with Maseratis and Bugattis all over. And the guard was like, "Yeah, the weight room's 3 doors down on the right." So I just walked in there by myself, and probably 10 feet away from me, as soon as I walked in, was LeBron James in there training, just an absolute monster. And Coach Fran took me in his office. We talked for a good 2 hours and shared everything that he does. And that's something that, as now I've kind of become more well-known in the strength and conditioning profession. Anytime any coach reaches out to me about wanting to learn about what I do or come visit and see what we do, that's something that has shaped me as well, where I know I want to continue to give back like Coach Ferran and Coach Schofield did. And then obviously like Billy Anderson and Pat Moore just being open and giving me my first shot in college strength and conditioning.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. That is one of the things I really love about our community in strength conditioning is just the openness of the willingness to bring people back into our community, to expand it, to share our knowledge. I know that for myself, one of my largest impacts here in the Atlanta area has been Coach John Sisk over at Georgia State. He is one of the most phenomenal, not coaches, but human beings that I've ever met. He and his wife have been very impactful, both on me as a person and in my career. Um, but I will say that my approach was a little bit different than yours, in that um, a lot of times we'll say, "Hey, I really love to get to know you. Really love to start to build um, community and just a relationship. Do you mind if I stop by and pick your brain?" Picking your brain sounds like a very painful experience.
Yeah, good point.
So I always say, "You know what? Do you mind if I take you out to lunch?"
Yeah.
you know Everyone's hungry, and I really, for me, that is a time for me to, for lack of better words, shut up and listen,
Yeah.
because that's the time that I want to learn from that individual. It's not the time for me to talk. That's the time for me to simply observe, listen, take in, and digest. So definitely
I think that's
something.
a great point. I might steal that from you.
Thank you very much. I will admit, I stole it from a mentor myself, and
Okay.
it has been something that has worked for me a lot. So you've been in the strength conditioning field for many, many years at this point. Been in the fitness field many years at this time. You've spoken about the impact that a lot of your mentors and relationships that you have come across have had on your career. What was one skill set that you noticed very early on that you said, "Hey, if I'm going to be successful, I need to work on this particular area"? And the reason why I ask that question is that it takes a lot to be very self-aware of our shortcomings. So what was the one skill set that you realized early on? You said, in order for me to become the coach that I would like to become and impact the lives that I'd like to impact, this is something that I need to develop. And how did you go about developing it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it immediately early on. And I think, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always continually trying to hone my craft, continually trying to learn more about the latest things in strength and conditioning, continuing to look at new certifications to give my athletes the best training possible. And I would love to go to conferences and clinics and continue to learn. And in the beginning, a lot of times I mean, I'm not the most outgoing or extroverted person. And a lot of the times I would go to those conferences and just sit in the back of the room, listen, take diligent notes, but that was it really. And then as I really got a little bit more confident and wanted to connect and network with people, going up and just introducing myself to other coaches and connecting with them and really networking with them. That's what's made me 100 times better coach, is not just going and doing certifications or going and listening to presentations. It's getting, like you said, networking with those coaches, getting to know them, becoming friends with them, taking them out to lunch, and just always having now that Rolodex of connections and contacts where you can just continually reach out about what they're doing in their programming. And like at the high school sector, like a lot of times it's just us as the strength coach, so you can get in your own little box and not continue to evolve. And so being able to network and have those other coaches that you can reach out to them daily or weekly or monthly about issues that you're having in your programming or ideas about what's been successful for them. That's I've become 100 times better coach once I started really networking with all those coaches. And there's so many unbelievable coaches. And like you said in the very beginning, one of the best things about our profession is the willingness other strength coaches have to share about their programming and really being an open door. And I think that's something that really has helped me become a better coach for sure.
Gotcha. So staying right in that pocket for a minute, you spoke of the networking and learning and going to the conferences, um, and just staying connected to coaches. Whether it be a Zoom call or once a week, once a month, or however frequent. How did COVID impact that over the last year and a half? So I know that initially during COVID, there was a little bit of an uncertain time before everything started to shut down. It just started to shut down gradually over time. We'll take a couple days off, and then, hey, we're going to be out for 2 weeks. Now we're out for a month. Now we're out for 2 months. Now we're out for a semester. And there was a time period in which um, a lot of uh, communities start to go online and do a lot of stuff. So I know that Play started to do a lot of stuff online. Perform Better did a lot of stuff online. A lot of individuals started to do a lot of stuff online. But it seemed about maybe, and it seemed as if, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed as if after maybe 3 or 4 months, there was a Zoom call every day.
Yeah, exactly.
And it started, I would say, um, I don't want to say that it started to lose its value per se, but it got to be overwhelming that it was like, okay, I can't do this Zoom call today because, I've been on a Zoom call every day, 4 or 5 hours doing Zoom calls after Zoom calls. How did COVID affect your ability to stay connected to your coaching community and again continue with your professional development?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, it was COVID sucked obviously, but that was a positive where I think a lot of us that are lifelong learners and want to continue to evolve as coaches, there was we had so much time on our hands that we've never have as strength coaches. Coaches don't have much free time on their hands. We had so much time on their hands, and there was so many different avenues of different companies and different organizations putting out content. And so I think I grew as a coach for sure during that time. And another great guy who I didn't mention as a mentor, who's a huge mentor of mine, is Jeremy Boone. And Jeremy Boone did a ton of stuff, and he's still a strength coach, but he's more on the leadership side now as well. And so he did a ton of Zoom calls and Zoom meetings and seminars about leadership, and it was great. And then to your point at the end, it started to get overwhelming, and there's still no replacement for that human interaction. So now I guess the first face-to-face conference I went to was at the end of June, the NHSSCA's conference in Minnesota, their national conference, and then I went to the NSCA's national conference here in Orlando. So I guess I've really only been to 2 in-person conferences in now a year and a half or whatever since it's been. So there's no replacement for that that face-to-face human interaction. But I agree, in the beginning of COVID, we had a lot of time on our hands, and it was something to definitely become a better coach, and it was great, but it did get overwhelming towards the end for sure. Because we us that want to continue to always want to work on becoming better, like you said, like there was so much stuff out there, and you kind of felt like, I need to do this, but I can't do everything. So it was one of my good friends, Adam Itala, always talks about protecting your bandwidth, and you gotta be able to you can't take on too many things at once. You got to be able to understand, hey, if I want to get the most value out of something, or be the best for my family, or be the best for my athletes, I can't try and do everything.
Gotcha. I know that you know, one of our guests that we recently had on is Ray Zingler of Zingler Strength and Conditioning, and he spoke of everything works until it doesn't work, and you don't want to spend 6-7 months working on one certification, and you get that certification, and then the very much next month start working on another certification, nullifying the previous certification, or doing something contraindicated for that certification. So he spoke to the importance that, what I took away was that everything works, but what is going to be the foundation of your training, of your principles? So I like to think of training and how I approach learning training much like a refrigerator. So when I open up the refrigerator, I have a ton of options. However, I'm going to take out what works best for me. And it's not to say that the other things don't work. It's just these are the things that I can implement and effectively train at 1,000%.
No question.
Not things that, and not only work at 1,000%, but therefore my target audience. I
Yep.
will say that the one thing that was a little bit difficult for me in learning during COVID is that I like to do a lot of testing of stuff.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, once I've learned something, I didn't necessarily have the hands-on experience to be able to then test it on a client per se. So I did it on myself, but again, how it works on me or how it affects me may not be the same way that it affects a client. So for me, I do like to do a lot of testing. Hey, I've learned something. Let me implement it with this particular client to see how it affects them and see the results that they get. So I would say for me, that was the one thing that was missing.
Yeah. No, I love what you said about figuring out, having a lot of options, and then figuring out what best works for you. And then also, I think even us as coaches, having that trainable menu for our athletes, like where you have what you, like you said, give your athletes what best works for them. And so we I like to think that we have a unified program, but not uniform, where we're all training towards the same athletic development goals, but it's not uniform where they're all doing the exact same thing. So again, to your point, figuring out what we can give our athletes that works, that we can coach best, and then also figuring out what works best for each individual athlete as well.
Thank you. That's great. So, considering that you are over a multiplicity of different sports, how do you keep um, your training protocol simple enough that you can translate it A over multiple sports and B over um, athletes depending on where they are in their training and where they are in regards to any type of rehab injury, anything of that nature?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think like a high school sector, you could have a 13-year-old in the weight room that has never trained before and can barely get into a body weight squat, and then a 18-year-old that maybe has been training for 4, 5, 6 years and extremely advanced. And you can have multiple sports in the weight room at the same time. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into program at the high school level, and it's something that's continually evolved during my time working with being at the high school level. And I think basically our programming is based off of 5 core values. Number 1 is we want to protect them. We want to protect them in everything they do in the weight room, obviously, and then do stuff to protect them from getting injured in the sport that they play. And number 2 is they need to be able to move well. So they have to have good fundamental movement patterns, being able to do a proper body weight squat, lunge, hip hinge, push, pull. They have to have good flexibility, good mobility, just good fundamental movement patterns before they move on to our next value, which is what you think of when you think of strength and conditioning, is to move strong. We're never going to load an athlete on dysfunctional movement. And especially at the high school level, whether they're a golfer, whether they're a football player, whether they're a volleyball player, whether they're a tennis player, the stronger, if they can move well and get stronger, it's going to enhance their ability in any of those sports, because none of them have really reached their maximum, come close to their maximum strength levels. So number 3 is move strong. Number 4 is move fast. We always want to incorporate some type of reactive agility, change of direction, and linear speed development in our programming. And then the last one is, it's listed last, but I definitely don't think it's last. The last one is thrive. We want to use the weight room as a place to teach them how to thrive in all areas of life, help them become more confident, help them to embrace the process of becoming the best at getting better, work together as a team, fuel their competitiveness, overcome obstacles, overcome failures. And so those are really our core values of how we shape our programming. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's a unified program, but not a uniform program, where they're all training towards those values, but they're not all doing the same movement. And so depending on where they are in our long-term athletic development spectrum, one athlete, say, could be doing a body weight squat, one could be doing a dumbbell squat, one could be doing a front squat, one could be doing a back squat. Once they've hit certain strength prerequisites, I think for a high school athlete, if they can squat 2 times their body weight, they're already very, very strong for their age. And then the last block that we have for our advanced athletes is then they'll move into doing some type of velocity-based training as well, where they've already maybe reached a certain strength level, that prerequisite. And now, do we need to continue to chase numbers? Say it's a 180-pound athlete and he's squatting 400 pounds. Do we need to keep chasing and loading him up and trying to get him to squat 500 pounds? My answer for a 17-year-old is probably not really. Can we train towards different levels of athleticism? So maybe now we'll reduce the load and they'll be training for more velocity development and trying to move that bar fast. So we'll have progressions and regressions for all of our movements. And then if an athlete has some type of movement limitations, maybe instead of doing bilateral squat, they'll be doing some type of unilateral, rear foot elevated squat. So they're still training towards those same athletic development capabilities, but it's all designed and differentiated to meet each athlete where they are in their long-term athletic development.
Thank you. So I love that how you um, have the foundation that, again, before we're loading up our athletes, we're making sure that they're able to move effectively, efficiently, and be able to get into the athletic positions that they need to for their particular sport. And then how you spoke of, even after they reach certain strength metrics, uh, what's the trade-off there? Are we going to continue to chase numbers that may not necessarily transform or translate to their performance on the field, or are we now going to, for lack of better terminology, maintain them at the strength levels that they are, and now start to move more toward a more power-based training that is going to translate to them being able to get into certain positions, to be able to produce force and power at a great velocity that is going to be able to translate and enhance their performance on the field. So I love that. With that uh, being said, what would you say is the one skill set that you would say that this is the one skill set that I have that has a set a, set apart how we train, um, how we train, or how you lead as a leader, and this one skill set is the most important skill set to the success that you've had, um, not as a coach, but just as a leader and a human being.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the biggest thing for sure is just being able to build an honest, trustworthy relationship with all parties, with anybody that I come in contact, whether as a coach, with my athletes, with the parents of the athletes, with the coaches that I work with, as an employee, being able to build that trustworthy relationship with my bosses and the other people that I work with. And then I'm able to, through my LLC and some of the extra training stuff that we do, I'm able to get some young coaches that also work under me. They're not employed by the school, but I'm able to compensate them through some of the other stuff they do. So I have some coaches that work under me and young coaches that work under me. And so just being able to build those trustworthy relationships with all parties, I think is 100% huge. As you know, and I know, we've all worked with or worked for people that maybe we didn't completely trust, and that does not build for a healthy atmosphere. And so just being able to have that trustworthy relationship is huge, especially from the coaching perspective of with our athletes and at the high school sector, having parents involved and the coaches involved. I think people all the time talk and say, hey, kids are different nowadays. Kids aren't like us. Kids are soft nowadays. And I wouldn't say that. I would say that yes, kids are different. But I think one of the biggest things is they're more inquisitive, and they want to know the why behind what we're doing. And so being able to explain the why behind what they're doing and building that trust level with them. Once you have that, then they're going to do anything you ask for them if they believe in you and they know that you have their best interest at heart.
Yeah, I love that. Again, I love that you said that, because I think it speaks to three pillars that I like to apply in my life, whether it be training or in my personal relationships, and that is the three pillars of authenticity, vulnerability, and transparency. So I believe that for any relationship to thrive, that you do have to have authenticity, vulnerability, and transparency. And I would also say that, yes, are kids different? Absolutely. They're raised in a different time. They're raised in a different culture. 2020 is not what 1920 looked like. However, we as coaches, we as parents are also different. And I think that when we say that, kids are different, it takes the onus off of us. It takes it takes the responsibility off of us to self-reflect, self-analyze, and see how we're coaching and what things that we could be doing better as a person, and simply says, brushes this off and says it's all the kids because the kids are different, as opposed to taking a more self-reflective approach, saying, yes, kids are different, but what do I need to change in my approach to reach this kid?
Exactly. Exactly. I love it.
So, just want to speak on a few more things real quickly, and that is, you spoke of your LLC. Could you elaborate a little bit about your entrepreneurial endeavors in regards to your LLC, and some of the challenges that you have faced in that?
Yeah. So that's another, obviously the biggest thing at the high school sector is being able to work with, be big in your community and work with kids from 4th or 5th grade all the way through high school, and being able to be a part of the community and work with the parents and adults. And that's and then also at the high school sector, I think you like, and especially at a private school where I'm at, that was one of the attractions that came here, where they give me the freedom to basically be an entrepreneur and run my own business out of here when I'm not teaching classes and running the before and after school strength and conditioning program. And so what we do here is what that's been really big is we have something called the morning machines with mainly with the parents of the athletes, of the students at Windermere Prep. It's expanded where some of them have invited their friends, where they might not have a child at Windermere Prep, but basically it's training, group style training with myself and my assistant coach in the morning, where now it's a way for us to make a little bit of extra revenue. The school actually gets a percentage as well, so the school makes a little bit of money as well. And then it's an unbelievable community builder and culture builder for our school and for our especially for the parents of our athletes, and then our athletes that train with us. It gives them that common bond where they're like, especially at the high school age, where maybe kids aren't talking to their parents as much, and they want to do their own thing, and they're quiet and don't talk at the dinner table. Now maybe they have that common bond where they're like, the mom and dad's like, hey, that workout this morning with Coach Kurtz was rough. Well, how was your workout with Coach Kurtz? So they have that common bond. And then also at the high school or at the private school level, it makes those parents feel more part of the school, where they're like, hey, we're on campus, we're training with Coach Kurtz, my kids are training with Coach Kurtz. And so hopefully that helps with retention and recruitment as well. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, and that's been extremely successful. And then also there's also some kids that maybe don't play a sport. Nobody wants to be weak, nobody wants to be out of shape. And so there may be some kid, we are always approached by parents and students of parents of students, where it's like, hey, my son or daughter doesn't feel comfortable training in the big group setting. Do you offer personal training? And so we can accommodate them for that as well. So maybe then they will gain some confidence and reach their fitness goals, and then maybe they will want to train in the group workouts as well. So so it's cool. You have that built-in network already, where, like, I mean, I think we all have that. Anybody in the strength and conditioning profession kind of always has that in the back of their mind. They're like, oh, I'd love to open my own gym. I'd love to have my own business. And as you know better than me, I mean, running your own business and having to pay that overhead is extremely challenging and difficult. And being at the high school, being able to do this at our weight room, having that built-in clientele where we got 1,600 students, so that's 3,000 parents right there that potentially could be training with you. You have that built-in network, and then I don't have to worry about paying a $10,000 overhead fee every month before I pay myself. It's something that's it's a win-win for everybody, and I think it's an awesome opportunity for sure. And that's something that I enjoy, because I love being a coach, love training, but I also think I have a little bit of a entrepreneurial spirit as well. So I'm able to fuel both of those in the same job.
Gotcha. So I love that you spoke on that. Again, I want to honor your time, so I'm just going to be a little bit brief. But I love the fact that you have your entrepreneurial spirit, because I think that, especially when you're going through the traditional career path of becoming a strength conditioning coach, many times once you reach that graduate assistant position, and sometimes even in your well, let me back up. When you go through your internship, and sometimes when you're going through that graduate assistant position, you have to supplement your income. Unfortunately, um, we have a mentality that, because it's a very competitive field, that, hey, I'll volunteer, I'll do whatever I need to do to get into the gym, I'll work for free. And don't get me wrong, we love what we do. And I'm going to say something controversial. I love what I do. I would not do it for free. And the reason why I would say that I would not do it for free, because for me, being a husband and a father, that's selfish for me,
Yeah.
because now I'm putting my joys, my pleasures, and my desires above my responsibility of being a husband and a father, and the ability to provide for my family. Um, so, with that being said, many times we have to find a way to be able to supplement that income in order to reach an end goal. So I love it that you saw the opportunity of having a built-in clientele and creating something that's very unique. I'll be honest with you, I don't know anyone that has done what you just proposed. Um, but I, again, what I keep hearing is a common theme of community, and how important community is to you, and building that community, whether it be the school, the athlete, extending that out to the parent, and then extending that out to the surrounding community. Um, so I really love that. And what I also hear is that through your entrepreneurial program, the children or the student athletes are able to build a common bond with their parent.
Yeah.
Um, but also, uh, what I hear is this: in that, in our country, obesity is rampant due to our eating habits, everything being ready to serve, inactivity, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But you have now given the parents a way of being active and being an example of a healthy lifestyle to their children. And it may come out that, hey, one father and son, or one daughter and mother, or vice versa, they get a little bit competitive. Hey, dad, I bench press 225 today. Dad, I'm coming for you. Dad is like, hey, I'm not going to let you come get me, young man. Or mother daughter taking a walk, or doing whatever. But I love the fact that you have now taken something that will now impact their family for years to come, whether it be lowering blood pressure, reducing, diabetes, or any type of comorbidity that, may come into play. So I love that a lot.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome to be able to, to be able to build that community. And that's one of the unique things about being at the high school level. And then it also, I think, from a selfish standpoint, like, I mean, it helps gain buy-in and trust in our strength and conditioning program, where, as you know, I mean, we're at a private school, parents are paying a big tuition bill. They're going to want to be involved and know who the strength coach is, and does he know what he's doing. And by me being open and honest and inviting them into our program, now it's helped with them trusting me with their son or daughter for sure as well. So it's been an awesome experience for sure. And I'd highly suggest anybody that's at the high school level that has the ability, and their school is cool with them doing that, to definitely look into it, and feel free to reach out to me, and I can explain more about how we set it up for anybody that's listening that's interested for sure.
And I think it's a great idea of how to create value in the program, because many times we don't know what we don't know. And what I mean by that is that, we you and I as trained professionals understand, the education behind strength conditioning and how to apply certain things, X, Y, Z. But a lot of times, a lot of parents may feel like, hey, it's just lifting weights. And you and I know that that's the furthest thing from the truth, that it's just about lifting weights. So I think it's a great way to open it up to the parents, be transparent, let them see what's going on in the program itself, get the buy-in, and especially at a private school where they're actually paying for the tuition. This is not something that they say, hey, we want to try to bring down our tuition. Let's go get rid of the strength conditioning program, because now they understand and see the value in what you actually do.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal for sure. Definitely job security is big.
Yes. Last two questions. So you spoke of being a lifelong learner, and how important it was for you to always continue to grow as a professional. What are three books that you would recommend any coach to read?
A good question. I think from a from a programming's perspective, I think how we program has been a huge book. Is Joe Ken's Joe Ken's tier system, his playbook for strength coaches, has been huge. Um, the Energy Boss by John Gordon is it's not a strength and conditioning book at all. It's about the power of positive energy and how people feed off of your energy. Whether if it's positive, they're gonna have a great experience. If it's negative, they're not gonna be around you. And so us as strength coaches, we wanna create an atmosphere where people want to be a part of what you're doing. And so the power of the Energy Bus by John Gordon, unbelievable book that I would recommend for anybody, especially strength coaches. And then even another one that's not an X's and O's strength and conditioning book is Lead for God's Sake, which is, it's actually a story about a coach and about people in the school, and just the why behind what we do and how powerful it is in this profession, the impact that we can have. And so Lead for God's Sake is huge. If I'll throw one more in there, I guess, because I only gave one X's and O's books, Power Positions by Andrea Hoodie also has shaped how I train our different sports. She breaks down how she trains her sports into three different categories, whether they're a linear athlete, a rotational athlete, or a reactive agility athlete. And so she kind of groups her sports into those categories. So that's something that's definitely helped shape my training philosophy as well.
Thank you so much for those recommendations. And what's next for Coach Kurtz?
Oh, good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm still relatively new here at Windermere Prep, just entering my fourth year. And obviously with COVID last year, it was a completely different atmosphere. And so I think I just always trying to continue to expand our program here to reach as many of our students and community members for sure. And so that's something that's huge. And then I mean, I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old son. So relatively new dad. Yeah, thank you. Relatively new dad. So just trying to be the absolute best father I can be. And I've only been married now a little over 3 years. So continually trying to be a better husband every day. That's our biggest accomplishment, is being a husband and father for sure. And it's awesome. My daughter, she's just a little over 2, and they just opened a new gym here right down the street that has classes for 2-year-olds, and she had her first one today, and she had an absolute blast. So that's something that's awesome to see for sure.
Wow. Now you just opened the can for one last question, or two last questions. With coaching and your leadership position, that can be very demanding in regards to your time. How do you balance your work-life balance? Because again, as a coach, it can sometimes be 60, 80 hours a week. So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like my buddy that I mentioned, Adam Itala, that talks about protecting your bandwidth, and you got to be able to say no to some things for sure. You want to be able to do everything, but you got to be able to say no so that you're a better husband and coach. And then also something that I'm blessed here is they trust me here. They trust me here. The weight room's kind of separated from the actual school building. So I'm kind of down here by myself, and my wife will bring my daughter up here sometimes, and when we have after school workouts, and my daughter will just hang out with us, and she'll hang out in the weight room and hang out in the office. And so that's awesome to be able to bring her around, and she has a blast. The kids are awesome with her, where they interact with her. And then also I think it helps me be a better coach and role model to my students and athletes as well, where they see me as a father as well. And so that's something that has been great for that aspect, but also great to be able to spend an extra hour or two during the day with my daughter and family for sure as well.
Thank you. And is there anything that we have not talked about that you'd like to discuss?
No, I think that's awesome. It's unbelievable show. I appreciate you having me on. Definitely a true honor. And then just like I mentioned, I mean, if anybody I want to give back to the profession, like Coach Ferran didn't know me from anybody and took me in and talked to me for 2 hours. And so if anybody has any questions of anything that we talked about that wants to reach out, feel free to. If I don't respond to an email or a voicemail after a few days, feel free to send another one, because as we know, we always get buried with doing a lot of things and sometimes can miss an email or voicemail. So I want to help, and don't feel discouraged or say I'm not doing what I'm said I was doing because I didn't respond. Feel free to send another one for sure, because I'd love to help and connect and continue to grow this profession as much as possible.
Thank you. And with that, Coach, where can our listeners and viewers find you on social media, internet, and you said they can possibly call you as well. So
yeah. So
where can they reach out to you at?
Yeah, so on Twitter and Instagram, it's the same, at Kurtz M3, Kurtz M3. Feel free to email me. It's my email is my last name and then first name, Kurtz Micah, MICAH @gmail.com. I have a website, www.theathletemaker.com, where we have a lot of our training programs on there. You can see about our youth, our middle school workouts and our adult workouts. And then, yeah, you can feel free to call or text me. My cell phone is 410-419-8330. Definitely love to connect with anybody for sure.
Thank you. And last question before we go, who are 3 guests that you would like to see us have on our show that you are willing to assist and facilitate them coming on?
Great question. I say Tobias Jacoby, another unbelievable strength coach. He's a high school strength coach at Strong Rock Christian in Atlanta. And he actually has a great story because he was a collegiate strength coach for 15 years and then transitioned into the high school sector. And he talks about, hey, I thought transition in the high school sector was going to be cake, but there's a whole new set of challenges. And so he can talk about the differences in that. Bill Ferran, I've heard him speak plenty of times and tells some unbelievable stories about he's been with the Miami Heat for over 30 years of working with Shaquille O'Neal, working with Dwayne Wade, working with all these guys. He actually started out as a high school strength coach and then went to the university and then went into the collegiate sector, was at the University of Miami, won 2 national championships with the football team there, and now has won 3 world championships with the Heat. Definitely would love to have him on there. And then I guess third is Jeremy Boone. Jeremy Boone is one of the most powerful speakers that I know, and he's used to be a assistant strength coach with the Charlotte Panthers, then got in the private sector for a while, and now still does some strength and conditioning, but he's really involved in the leadership development and really leadership development for coaches and sports teams. And he's somebody that is a very powerful speaker and love to listen to and learn from as well. And so I definitely recommend them 3. And I definitely would be honored to try and help facilitate that as well.
Thank you so very much for those recommendations, and thank you for your time. Anything else that you'd like to say to our listeners as we get ready to close this episode?
No, just my favorite quote for sure. I mean, one coach will impact more young people in a year than most people do in a lifetime, and that's we're in the best profession possible, and it's definitely always try and make a positive impact on anybody you come in contact with, for sure.
Well, thank you very much for your time. This is Coach Lay with Magis Athletic Training saying, we out.